WCNC Charlotte. This is Flashpoint.
Thanks for joining us here on Flashpoint. I'm Ben Thompson. This weekend, we are celebrating the Earth here in Charlotte and across the country. Scientists largely agree that carbon emissions from everything like cars to factories are contributing to global warming. But there's an ongoing debate about the most efficient way to keep our Earth clean. Coming up in a moment, we'll hear from a climate expert based right here in the Carolinas about what needs to be done to slow down our changing world. But first, joining us now is the Chief Sustainability Officer for the City of Charlotte, Sarah Hazel. Sarah, thanks for coming on. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so explain to us, first of all, what is your job? I think you're the first person to actually hold this role at the City of Charlotte level. What is it that you do?
Well, as the Chief Sustainability and Resiliency Officer, I am charged with focusing on how we become a sustainable and resilient city. And the main way that we do that is by focusing on the implementation of our Strategic Energy Action Plan, which Council unanimously adopted in 2018. So we're really working to reduce our impact on climate through lowering our greenhouse gas emissions, and we do that in a number of different ways.
All right, let me ask sort of the obvious question. For the person at home who might be struggling to make ends meet, why is what you just said still a priority for us as a society and for them as a family?
I think that's a really great question. So, I mean, when we really think about it, we can talk about the science behind all of this, but what we're really talking about is clean air for people to breathe and a safe and healthy environment for ourselves and for future generations. So when you try to make it a little more personal like that, I think it really puts a finer point on why this type of work is important. And also, all of this work is really, it's intersectional. So actually, last night, City Council allocated $1 million to a partnership with Duke Energy to upfit homes, both to make them safe with home rehab, but then to layer energy efficiency work on top of that so that we're lowering people's bills, which helps people make ends meet, but also reducing our impact when it comes to the environment by making sure that we don't need to burn as much energy that's carbon intensive. So these things are not kind of mutually exclusive. They all intersect, and they can help people's bottom line in addition to improving our environment.
You sort of mentioned it earlier, the city working towards becoming a low carbon city by 2050. It means cutting down on everything from gas emissions, planting more trees. Put this in perspective. How big of a task is that, and what needs to happen to make it a reality?
It's a huge task. I think cities not only in North Carolina or across the U.S., but really across the globe are working hard. But this is a hugely ambitious undertaking for us all. And it really takes not just, a municipal approach, but a whole of society approach, private sector, public sector, nonprofit, research institutions, and individuals to come together to make it a reality. So there's certainly strategies that are moving us towards that goal. But I think the great thing is that while cities are the places that typically are most responsible for emissions, right? We have the most people, we have the most transportation going on, things that can emit fossil fuel and carbon into the air, right? But at the same time, we are the places where we can be most innovative and we can really move the needle. So I think cities have a huge role to play. We're not the only ones that have a role to play, and it's definitely not easy.
Part of this is also moving the city to 100% zero carbon fleet and facilities by 2030. 2030 is not that far away. I mean, we're talking 7 years. Where's the city on meeting those goals?
Yeah, it is. And when our city council adopted those goals, they knew that it was incredibly ambitious. And so, 2018, it's now 4 or 5 years into our strategy. We know a lot more now than we knew then. We see some electric vehicles coming on the market that we couldn't buy in 2018. And still, we don't have electric options for all of the vehicles that we need to transition. And so we don't know yet whether we're going to hit those goals. But I think what we do know is that we have some really good strategies in place, and we're going to get as far as possible because those goals are incredibly ambitious.
Upgrading the city's fleet would also include upgrading CAT's buses. It's been an ongoing controversy we've sort of covered here. It's an agency that's been struggling recently to keep workers and maintain buses and trains. You're aware of some of the issues with CATs. Where does upgrading the buses, though, fall in that pecking order? I mean, that's your priority, but is that necessarily going to be CAT's priority right now?
You know, CATS is focusing on core services, and probably one of the biggest ways that we can reduce our community-wide emissions is by getting more people out of their single occupancy vehicles and into other modes of transportation. In fact, the city has a strategic mobility plan that has an aspirational goal to do that by 2040, to shift to 50% of people not traveling alone in their single occupancy vehicle. So whether it's an electric bus or a hybrid bus, getting people into buses and onto transit or walking or biking or other modes is incredibly important for hitting our goals. So I think the foundational work that CATS is doing right now is really critical, because whether it's electric or not, it's going to make a really big difference towards reducing our overall community emissions.
What do you think is the biggest sustainability challenge the city's facing right now?
Well, you know, and this isn't unique to sustainability or unique to Charlotte, but there are certainly a lot of opportunities that we know are going to become possible, but we're still facing things like supply chain delays that make it harder to get vehicles, and including electric vehicles. So we're needing to really work through that. We're testing new technology. You know, CATS has a 18 electric bus pilot, and we are in the process of getting a electric fire truck built for our fire department, and we'll be, you know, learning how to use that new technology. And so kind of the timing of the technology coming together and piloting these efforts, and some of the real challenges that exist today with supply chain, I think that just is something that we have to keep figuring out how to navigate.
In your mind, what does a true green city look like, say, in 30 years?
So, you know, from a municipal side of things, if we are powering all of our operations, our vehicles, our buildings with zero carbon sources, you know, you can imagine what that will look like, right? So not only will we have solar and other types of renewable energy on our properties, which, you know, we're working towards right now. We have once we see everything constructed that's budgeted for, we'll have over 25 solar panels on municipal sites. But that really needs to be community wide. So a real investment in clean renewable energy, a real focus on that as a community, and people using options to get to where they need to go that are sustainable, whether that's walking, biking, taking a scooter, transportation. We know Charlotte is growing. And if Charlotte's going to keep growing it, and we also know people are going to move here, right? So coastal cities, we're going to see more and more people moving to places that aren't coastal as we see the impacts of climate taking effect. So it'll be a place where people will want to come, because it is a place that has focused on and continues to focus on clean air and doing that in a way that's equitable, where it doesn't matter, you know, what part of the city you live in, you have access to the same benefits of living in a healthy city.
Can you achieve all the goals and the city achieve its goals without the necessary buy-in from, say, state lawmakers in Raleigh? Or is this whole plan completely sustainable on itself with city resources and no really need for state help?
So, I mean, I think I mentioned this earlier on, but it really does take an all of society approach, you know, at all levels of government and beyond government, private sector and nonprofits and individuals. And so I think what I would say is that I think everybody believes in clean air and clean water and safe and healthy ways to get around. And so, you know, sometimes language, I think, can divide folks on some of the issues that we're talking about today. But when you get down to sort of what we're trying to achieve, I think that's something that pretty much everybody can agree on. So working on figuring out how to get there together, obviously will be really important.
That's a great way to end the interview on this Earth Day, and I think an important message that everybody needs to hear, no matter what sort of political persuasion they come from. All right, listen,
Absolutely.
thank you so much for coming on. We appreciate it.
It was great being here, and thanks for having me.
All right, take care. More Flashpoint after this.